Hello there, my name is Joe Lowe from Maver UK. We're here at Maver Larford Lakes in Worcestershire today with Callum ex-under-22 world champion and a master with commercial fisheries. Hi Callum, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you, Joe.
Shallow fishing today, Callum?
Yeah, I just started having a go. There's perfect conditions for it. Sun's out, it's quite flat, calm, slight breeze for it, so if I was going to pick a day, it'd be today to catch shallow.
Conditions obviously play a big part in your decision.
Oh yeah,
goes without saying.
Yeah, the fish have to be in the top layer of the water to catch shallow, obviously.
Okay, well, what's the idea of this slapping the rig on the water, Callum? I've watched you do it 2 or 3 times since we've got here.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the most modern ways of laying your rig in, or slapping as you like to call it, of modern time with shallow fishing, is to actually fling your whole rig around your pole out of the water and slap it back down on the water. What you're creating is the noise of the pellets going in.
Ah, right, I understand.
But
right.
what actually happens is when you actually slap it 3 or 4 times, you're creating the noise of the pellets, but when your rig goes in, you're the only pellet in the swim.
Right.
So when the fish comes up, there's a lot of competition for one pellet. And a lot of the times when you get it right, they can actually pull the elastic at the end of your pole.
Right, now obviously to be able to roll that over as you've shown us how you were doing it, you need a stiff pole.
Oh yeah, that's the main thing about this. If you've got a long floppy pole, then you won't be able to do it. It's a light stiff pole is the most important factor of slapping.
What have you got there, Callum?
This is the Maver Elite 77. It's absolutely perfect for it, really light, but also very stiff. You don't want the pole to be slapping the water as you bring your rig out.
Right.
A lot of the time that's banned at a lot of commercial fisheries.
Okay.
But no, that's really important though.
And your feeding patterns vary, fluctuate?
Yeah, it depends how many fish you're catching. A lot of the time when you're catching lots of fish, you're not feeding often because you spend a lot of time playing your fish.
Right.
But it also depends on what depth the fish are at. Quite often, if they're at a deeper depth, you feed less often but more. But when they're really shallow, like I think they're going to be today, feeding really little and often is a lot better.
Okay.
But varying your feeding really does work when you're fishing shallow. If you're catching one way, then all of a sudden you stop catching, the first thing you do is change. You either change your depth or you change your feeding pattern. You might want to try giving it a big pouch full weight in,
yeah.
Or you might want to try just feeding really often.
Okay, and it's pellets you're obviously using to feed and on the hook, yeah?
Yeah, of course, yeah. They'll be exactly the same size, or maybe you could put a 6 mil on the hook and feed 4 mils, but today I'm feeding 4 mils and putting a 4 mil on the hook. Okay,
now obviously trying to do that with a soft pellet would mean that the pellet flies off every time you flick it over, so I assume you've got a banded
Yeah,
pellet.
I've got a banded hair rig on, which makes it possible for the pellet to stay on the whole time whilst you're slapping. Okay. Which is really important. The float also is very important. I've got a really short dibber float on. That allows you to fish really shallow. And also when you slap it over, it cocks immediately. Yeah. You don't want a float to be going underneath the surface of the water when you slap it over.
Of course, yeah.
But really, once you get the feeding right and you're using the right gear, shallow fishing is very simple. You keep changing your depth, keep changing your feeding, varied on the fish that are in your peg.
Okay, you've got to keep that feed going through the water.
Yeah, of course, yeah. You've got to keep the fish competing. You've got to try and bring them up as shallow as possible. Yeah. Like I said before, the shallower you can fish, the bigger the fish you catch.
Okay, and obviously this method's going to catch everything from skimmers, roach to great big carp.
Yeah, I mean the main species you're looking for is F1s, carp, your bigger fish. But I mean a lot of weights when you catch them shallow. You can put 20, 30, 40 pound of skimmers and roach on the scales as well, which is always an added bonus.
Obviously making a big difference to the final weight.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I mean, like I said, you are trying to target carp, but I mean the odd skimmer here and there and the odd big roach doesn't go amiss. And slapping and feeding all the time will attract everything into your peg.
So of course the elastic selection has got to be an important factor then.
Yeah, I always use quite light elastics when I'm fishing shallow. Like I said, sometimes they can pull the elastic at the end of the pole. Now sometimes if you use the too heavy elastic, it donks them off. So a nice soft elastic allows them to pull it out, and you've got a lot of time to feed also when you're playing the fish. If you've got lots of elastic out, you can let the fish run whilst you keep feeding.
Right.
The people that feed the most regular when you're fishing shallow are the people that will catch the most.
Understood.
Yeah. There's a few fish there now. They're not quite competing as much as what I'd hope, but there are starting to get a few indications, and hopefully soon I will hook one. Like I said, when you get some fish in your peg, sometimes if you just slap and stop feeding, that can produce a more positive bite.
Obviously a carp, Callum.
Yeah, one F1, Joe. Decent fish there.
Now, this type of method obviously is a sort of method that you can roll it over, roll it over, roll it over. You'll catch skimmers, you'll catch roach, and then all of a sudden we almost get carp o'clock, as I understand.
Yeah,
Would that be true?
Yeah, sometimes you can just go for hours just catching small fish, and then all of a sudden, carp every chuck.
In which case you're looking at big weights in a short period of time.
That's correct, yeah.
So obviously the smoothness of everything becomes very, very important.
Like I said before, the gear has to be balanced, the right elastic, right hook, right float, and you should be able to do decent weights.
Well, we'll have a look at all that when you've hopefully landed this fish, Callum.
Like I said before, I'm using the Power Zone top kit again. Just an added little bonus that you don't need a bung. So it makes the pole that little bit lighter for slapping the rig over as well.
Yeah.
All added bonuses that make it just give you a little small advantage over other people, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That was a nice carp, Callum.
Yeah, good start, Joe.
Yep. Can you talk us through, it looks very straightforward, Callum, but if you could talk us through the actual parts that you're using.
Yeah, sure. I'll start off with the hook. The hook again is a pre-tied hair rig band for putting hard pellets on. It's actually a size 18 to 014. Like I said before, the fish in there can be quite clever, and when you catch them shallow, a smaller hook can be quite beneficial, especially to 014 lines. It's slightly bit thinner, lighter, so it just becomes a little bit more cute.
And these are the pre-tied MT4s?
MT4s already tied up for you. I've just cut them down to a bit shorter, that's all.
And that's a standard length hair rig. Now,
yeah.
Obviously there are times and uses whereby you'd use an extended hair rig. You wouldn't use that for this type of fish?
No, not on the pole. I use that more on the waggler. A lot of the times, because there's like 30, 40, 50 yards of line between you and the float when you're using a waggler, a lot of the times the bites can be very, very difficult to hit, especially when the fish are very pressured. And a longer hair rig sometimes can make you hit a higher percentage. Right.
Now, again, shotting obviously on a shallow rig.
Yeah, very, very simple, because again, you're actually fishing at a shallow depth, so there's not a lot of shot on the line. I've used quite a big dibber today. That's actually a 0.1 series 4. It takes about 3 number 9s, but I've actually just spread them out just below the float, just above the hook length as well. It's nice and really, really simple. Don't need to complicate anything too much. I've used a slightly bigger one because like I've said before, when I was slapping it, it makes just a little bit more noise with a slightly heavier dibber.
And carp being inquisitive are attracted
to the noise. They react to the noise, and there's quite a really buoyant bristle on it.
Okay, and that again, as all the Invincible float ranges, is a line straight through the float to avoid any eye pulls.
Yeah, that's
make it very, very direct.
What happens when you're fishing shallow at that depth, when you net a fish, your actual float's in your landing net. And what can happen when the fish kicks in the landing net, the fish can go over on the float. And if you've got a small eye in there, it can pop out. It happens all the time when you're shallow fishing. These new floats are absolutely fantastic. There's no ice, so they can't pull out. And you can start off at the start of the session using one float and end the session using one float.
As the name suggests,
it's invincible. Yeah, as before I would used to set up 4 or 5 shallow rigs just to compensate for the eyes pulling out. But with these now, you can limit yourself down to 1 or 2 floats, and that'll do you for your 5-hour match. Okay,
and we spoke before about the elastic, Callum. That's a relatively soft elastic.
Yeah, again, soft, balanced tackle. It's a 6 to 9 Maver hollow. It's really, really compensating for catching all sizes of fish. You can catch roach, skimmers, and all your big carp on it. Really, a nice soft elastic is also very good when you're hooking the fish, because sometimes they can pull the elastic at the end of your pole, so you don't want something too tough.
Understood.
The main line I'm using is 017, so it's quite a strong main line. Like I said, the line's going to be in your landing net when you land a fish, but 014 hook length, like I said before.
So you need something relatively strong, relatively abrasion resistant, and something that's going to be durable, hopefully for the
and then the 017 Maver Genesis compensates that perfectly.
Well, I think we've seen the rigs, we've seen the method, we've seen the feeding. I think we'll leave Callum in peace now to actually carry on with what he's doing. Should you require any further information related to the products, if you have any questions for us, please refer to the links at the end of this video. Thanks again.